Hello, my name is Nicholas. Welcome to the Woodlands Nature Station virtual homeschool day for 2021. Today we're going to be working on water chemistry, which is one of my favorite subjects. It's one of my favorite things to do experiments with. And so we're going to be setting up an experiment here to show part of the water cycle. And of course, the whole theme for Homeschool Day is water and what a waterful world this is. And so this experiment is going to kind of show you a little bit about how water moves throughout the ecosystem and how that can be really important. But we can do that with just a really simple experiment right here in your own home. Now there's a couple of things that you're going to need in order to do this. First, you're going to need some kind of cup, like a coffee mug, something that you can get warm, something you can get hot. And it won't be too difficult for you guys to hold or touch, so coffee mugs are really one of the better things for this. And of course you're going to want this filled with water, because that is what we're doing our experiment with. So a coffee mug full of water is your first ingredient. Now the second ingredient is you're going to need some kind of large plastic bowl. It doesn't necessarily have to be plastic, you can use a metal pot as well, that'll work. The more important thing about the bowl is it needs to be big enough for your entire coffee mug to sit down inside of it without it being all the way up to the top. You're going to want this to sit down in there and have a little bit of a gap between where the coffee mug ends and the top of your bowl is. So you're going to want a little bit of airspace there. So really just a big pot, big bowl. Salad bowls are really good. That's what I'm using. So those are two of your ingredients. Now your last ingredient is some kind of saran wrap, some kind of large plastic wrap. We happen to have some big food service film here that we're going to use. If you don't have anything quite this size, you can use a couple of layers of saran wrap. But you'll want it to be cleared plastic, and that'll be really good for what we're going to be doing here. So let's get into our experiment. If you guys want to pause the video here and make sure you have all of these ingredients first, then once everybody has everything, we'll get the experiment started. Alright, so now that we have all of our ingredients, our water is heated up enough to where we're seeing little vapors coming off of it. Our bowl is ready, and we've already trimmed off a piece of saran wrap here that's big enough to fit over the bowl. Then all we are going to do is we're going to carefully lift our hot coffee cup, our hot mug, and set it down inside of the bowl, roughly in the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you cover the whole thing with your saran wrap. Make sure that it's nice and firmly set. If I can get it to set on our bowl here. You wanted a nice good seal, and then you just wait. Now what you should start seeing after a few minutes, it might take a little while, is that those warm water vapors that are coming off of the water inside of the cup are going to rise up to this plastic here, and after a little bit of that hot warm air from coming off, the water vapors coming off of the coffee cup start collecting on the inside of this saran wrap, then it's going to start doing what we call condensation. It's going to condense down and start turning into water vapor, start turning into water droplets on the inside of our saran wrap. And after a little bit, this whole area will be covered in that condensation. It'll be covered in those little water droplets. And after it moves out over to the sides where it's not directly over the warm cup, then some of that condensation, some of that water will build up to the point where it will then fall down off of the plastic. And this is exactly what happens to our water vapor in our atmosphere, is that the sun will heat up places like our oceans and our lakes and our creeks, and that will cause that warm water vapor to rise up into the atmosphere, and as it rises, it cools, it finds little dust particles and things that it can condense down onto, and after enough of it builds up into what we call clouds, once there's enough water vapor built up, then it will then start to precipitate. It will start to fall back to Earth, and this experiment will kind of demonstrate that. Now, something we can do to speed this reaction up is we can add a few ice cubes onto the top of the saran wrap here. And what that would represent is that the atmosphere, the higher up in the atmosphere you go, the colder it is. So it kind of speeds up that condensation. So as those warm water vapors come up to the upper atmosphere, where it gets closer to space, then it loses a lot of that heat. And as it loses that heat, the water will then condense down. Warm air can hold more water vapor, than cold air can. So as that air cools, it kind of squishes the water out of it. It doesn't allow it to hold as much water vapor. And so if I zoom in here, you can see that we're already getting a lot of condensation on the inside of our saran wrap right above where the cup is. And so, and you can see how it's starting to turn kind of a foggy, opaque color. That is essentially the same thing that happens during cloud formation. So we've kind of made a tiny little cloud here. Now if you just let this sit for a good little while, 20-30 minutes or so, then what you can do is you can actually come back to it and see how much water has moved from inside the cup, outside the cup, and into the bowl through this whole process of evaporation, which is the warm. Our saran wrap has swollen to the point where it's pushing our ice cubes off. Get those out of the way. That warm air inside of the saran wrap is expanding. As the warm water, as the sun would hit something like a lake or a stream, or just like this, the warmth from the coffee cup is causing these waters to evaporate and then condense onto the saran wrap. And then eventually it'll build up to the point, we can already see quite a few little droplets pooling up here. It'll condense to the point where it can't cling to the saran wrap anymore, and it will fall, and that's what we call precipitation. And that whole cycle of evaporation, condensation, precipitation is what we call the water cycle. Now this is incredibly important in our environments because as the waters in the cup or in our oceans and in our streams evaporate, they leave a lot of the nutrients and other things that are in the water cycle, in the system. They leave all that. The only thing that evaporates and rises into the warm air is the water. And so as it then condenses and precipitates, then that precipitation, that rain, is fresh water. It doesn't have all of the chemicals or nutrients or any of the other things that were in the water before it evaporated. And so this is one of the ways that our water cycle kind of cleans itself. It kind of rinses itself of all of these things, which is pretty cool. So again, thank you guys for joining us for our virtual homeschool day. I'm just going to let this sit for a little while, and feel free to check out your work booklet and answer any of the questions in our work page about water chemistry and our water cycle. And thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.